get those back to me as quickly as possible. And then I'll get right to yours. Okay, anything else on that? You turn it in, turn it in. And
Were
then
you supposed to
turn-
share it with you too?
I think it's already shared. It
Oh.
should be shared from the
Then I already
beginning.
shared.
Okay, yeah, it should be just, once you've shared it, it's there, and whatever changes you make, I can see. So, and you shouldn't be working from multiple documents, you should just have the one Google Doc that you're working from.
Oh crap.
I had it on here.
I fixed everything on my Word document. I wasn't doing it on Google Docs.
Okay,
Sure, it's
Yeah, me too.
okay, well, y'all really need to shift to Google Docs.
okay. It just doesn't always work as good, so I thought, well, maybe.
Well, what really doesn't work is transferring Microsoft Word to Google Docs.
Yes.
Okay.
That just destroys all formatting.
Oh, really?
So,
Yeah. I tried that last night. And I was
It
like,
removes
I realize that.
indentations from paragraphs, it takes out italics,
Uh,
it changes the length of the paper.
I just do Microsoft Word because I can do it on this, and you don't need Wi-Fi for it.
Yeah, you
Or
don't
internet
have to have
connection.
Wi-Fi for Google Docs either.
You don't?
No,
Oh.
you're just doing, Google Docs offline, but you have to set it up, and you don't wanna do it on, it means that anything that you do actually goes directly to the computer. And anything that you do on the computer when you're not online will automatically upload when you do go online.
Okay.
So you can ask Mr. Kopic more about that, but you can work on Google Docs offline. And I think that if we're gonna stick with this, and you can ask, Adam, if this is gonna be our program, y'all need to go ahead and shift to it. Because it's crazy. Haley Hostetter was just trying to work on her senior thesis, she did it in Microsoft Word. And printed it, it was fine, but then she had to move it to Docs so that she could share it with the faculty who are gonna be on her oral defense, and it just changed everything. You can save it as a PDF, and that's supposed to preserve the formatting, but I'm not sure if that always works. But she had a whole bunch of crazy stuff going on, she really had a perfect paper, so that was kind of frustrating. Okay, I don't love Google Docs as well either, but you also don't run into the situation of, I thought I changed that, where you change it on one doc, but you actually end up printing the other one, or sometimes correcting half on one and half on a different one, and so I would say just go ahead and stick with Google Docs, it automatically saves, that's a great thing. You can share it with, students that you wanna have proofread for you, without ever having to, print it or anything, yes.
When I went and I did it on Google Docs and then I turned it on and turned it in.com and it looked different.
Well, I know that Turnitin will move your works cited page around,
Yes.
yeah, but I don't think it'll change anything else.
It changed it made my paper look longer.
Look longer or just, or be longer?
Look longer. It was more than what I actually printed out.
Okay, well, that's not gonna matter, because the only thing that Turnitin does is check for plagiarism. So, that's really its sole purpose. And if we can find a cheaper one, we're gonna go to a cheaper one. But it just helps to not have to be suspicious, to not read with suspicious eyes. I actually one time, just a test, was reading somebody else's paper and thought, that sentence just doesn't sound quite right. So I plugged it in, and what I got was a different student. I saw a document with lines from another student's paper. And I had no idea if that student had plagiarized, but I had corrected it. I didn't think the grammar was right on this internet document. So when she pasted it into her paper, I had corrected it. So when I saw it on the internet, I wouldn't have remembered, except that I had made corrections, whoever that internet author was. I didn't think they were right. And so I caught that one, I wasn't even looking for it. But it was oops, that's what somebody else said. So it's just not a fun, I just love having somebody out there, and if school has to pay a little bit extra for it, that's fine with me. So that's its only purpose. It's not gonna matter what your formatting is over there or anything. And I always click that y'all can see your originality report, so you can go in and don't worry about the top percentage, like it says 10% or 12%. That can be a whole lot of 1%. Because, like I say, over 3 words, but Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, boom, plagiarism. Because it's over 3 words, exactly the same. It'll do things like, who we read about? Dickens says, or Dickens writes about poverty, and it'll do Dickens and poverty less than 1%. So it's easy for you to see and for me to see that it's just negligent use. I mean, not negligent, negligible usually, as far as the percentage of similar material. Okay, I have the other class really wanted one of these, so how to study for the test. And take out your chart. Let's make sure that all the information on your chart that has the different literary time periods in it. Let's make sure that those are all correct. I did feed y'all one wrong date. And now I've got mixed documents, that some that have the right one and some that have the wrong one. So I had to go through and figure out which was my right date. And it's for Coral Island. Coral Island was actually published in 1858. And at some point along the way, I said 1850. So make sure that you have 1858. It's the chart that looks like this.
So 1858.
And remember, this is misleading because Romanticism actually fits up under early Victorian. And Realism fits up under late Victorian. So I may actually change this eventually and put early Victorian / Romanticism and late Victorian / Realism in there. I don't know. But there's not real clear dividers. And you're going to find different dates in different documents. So basically we say 15th to 17th centuries for the Renaissance, 18th century for the Enlightenment. Really 19th century for Romanticism. You can say late 18th to early 19th, but The Rime of the Ancient Mariner is one of the first of the Romantic poems, and it's 1798. That's only 2 years off of being in the 1800s. So you can say 19th century. Okay, so holding to that, because you're going to want to be filling that in as we look at some of these. Under the how to study, you've got, do you know the key characteristics of neoclassical literature, and can you place it in its historical context? You may already have words written there. You have lots of documents on that. I've given you like characteristics of, I've given you one that says neoclassical literature, and one that says art movements that talks about the dynamics of neoclassical art, which can be extrapolated to literature. So you can find those characteristics. The preceding era is what? What comes before? What came right before the Enlightenment?
Renaissance.
And the century for the Enlightenment is the 18th century. And there were 4 revolutions. The 2 middle ones are different than the 2 outer ones. The early 1700s and the late 1700s are different kinds of revolutions than the 2 in the middle. That's a hint.
Is the one in the middle the French, like one of the French Revolution?
Which one?
1789.
Yes. 1789 French Revolution.
Is one like a revolution of the mind or of thinking instead of like a war?
Industrial?
Which one? Yes, sort of, but which of the revolutions? And Amy's right that one of them is industrial.
Is the last one the Industrial
Yeah.
Revolution?
Yes, it is. Late 1700s and into the 19th century is the Industrial Revolution.
And what was the? Oh, you said 2 of them yesterday. It was industrial and.
That's the first one that happens in the early 1700s.
Scientific,
Right?
yeah.
Scientific revolution.
Just almost said agricultural. That's really.
Somebody asked about reductionism under Enlightenment. I think that's on a handout somewhere. It might be on your Rousseau handout. It's the idea that if we can just break something down into its parts, we can understand it. Its truth is accessed by dividing something, by division or reduction down to the smallest entity. And we don't think that anymore. We think the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. But particularly in following in the aftermath of the scientific revolution, they thought reductionism was the way to find truth. Okay, then you have your Romantic literature stuff. You need to know its characteristics.
Which
You got
one?
lots of handouts on that. Yes.
Which one was 1776?
Oh,
I know it's in the.
Mm-hmm.
1776.
I can't think of the name of it.
The colonies.
Oh, French Indian Wars.
The colonies of America.
Revolutionary
America.
War.
The American Revolution.
Oh, I should have known that. Oh, dang it.
Yeah, y'all actually, in the lineup of important dates that y'all should know, 1776 is one of them. 1789, not so important. 1776, important. I know you've got American history coming up next semester, but you've had some American, you have 2 years of American history in 5th and 6th grade. One person was saying there's been like a 1776 on the wall of your classroom for like 6 years in lower school. Okay, so yes, it is the American Revolution. Do you know the key characteristics of romantic literature? Okay, so that's the imagination, emotionalism, supernatural, harmony and unity with nature. I would like for you to go and find your own that you're going to remember, and some little way for you to remember them, some acrostic, something that tells you these are the things I'm going to talk about if I'm asked to talk about the characteristics of romantic literature.
So we need to, if there was an essay on this, we need to know what they are and have examples of them.
If I say, do you know the key characteristics? If you answer no, that would be the wrong answer. You need to say, yes, I know the key characteristics of romantic literature.
Okay.
And I can place romantic literature in its proper historical context. The preceding era is, we just did it.
Renaissance.
No, Enlightenment. It's during the Victorian era. Yeah, so it goes Renaissance, Enlightenment, Romanticism.
Preceding. I keep doing afterwards.
Its century is the 19th century. That's the 1800s. It coincides with the reign of which British monarch?
Victoria?
And literature written during her reign often addressed what social problem?
The plight of the poor.
Good.
Plight?
Flight. Freedom from oppression. What was it that brought on a big problem amongst the poor?
Oh.
We just looked at the historical events of the Enlightenment. No, not really French, because it's in Great Britain too. It's particularly in Great Britain. And it created a whole lot of bad conditions for the poor. What was it?
Industrial?
Yeah, the Industrial Revolution, because we have factories and workhouses, and we need people to forge all this new metal and all that kind of stuff. And so we use children and poor people. So yeah, the Industrial Revolution does bring on a lot of that. Okay, so, kind of think about how we have the grammar stage, the logic stage, and the rhetoric stage. Y'all are clearly, should be focusing in on logic stage with a little bit of rhetoric. Grammar stage is just kind of basic facts, so they're still grammar stage. They usually talk about how, often they talk about it's grammar stage, then logic stage, and then rhetoric stage, and it's not quite like that. It's more like columns, and the columns change. And if this is grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And this is kind of where y'all are. You'll get less and less questions from the grammar stage, more from the logic stage, not quite so many from rhetoric yet. That comes mostly into papers. When you're in elementary school, it's mostly all just the facts with a little bit of logic, and we still want you to write in an intelligible way. So it's kind of helpful, I think, to think in terms of like intensity of focus on these three different things. And I found that, I'm saying that because in the other class, they kind of were feeling a whole lot of tension over the grammar stage stuff, and I want you to have all your facts, and you do somewhere. We'll just make sure that you've got them all collected for tomorrow. But you really also need to think through more, the test is heavier on the logic stage kind of question than on grammar stage. So there's not going to be, well, we can read this. As far as literature is concerned, you should know certain key details like authors and publishing dates. And we'll go over those and make sure you have all those. But you should also be able to write intelligently about each of the works we studied. You're not going to have large matching fill-in-the-blank sections, but you do need to know main characters, basic plot outlines, and the controlling theme of each work. Knowing details will help you support answers concerning the role of these works within their literary movements. So, think of it this way. Suppose you go in for a college entrance interview and they see that you read Gulliver's Travels in 10th grade. And they say, well, Aaron, that's interesting. I see you read Gulliver's Travels. Could you comment on what was going on there and why it's important? Well, you should say, yes, I could. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to refer to the 4 different kingdoms and what they represented. The more specific you are, the better. I don't know who's going right now. We'll just see if it's important. You can give general ideas that kind of is common knowledge about Gulliver's Travels, but it would be better to give specifics. Edit maybe. Sorry, you're not in my phone. So for example, it's one thing to be able to say that Swift makes fun of the way people of the Enlightenment were concerned with order and decorum. That's a true statement. But it would be better to say that he sets up a scene in Lilliput in which the giant Gulliver thoroughly annihilates the prohibition concerning making water at the palace by peeing on the miniature queen's quarters to put out a fire. That's just a better way of saying that he makes fun of their need for order and decorum. Okay, so do you need to know details? Well, you do need to know details if you need to support what you're saying about these different works. But I'm not going to say, what did Gulliver do at the palace? Okay? All right. Your neoclassical work is Gulliver's Travels. Who's the author?
Jonathan Swift.
Good. Published in. It should be on your chart because we've already covered these.
Published 1990. Wait, the publishing date of the book?
Yes.
17. Oh.
Not of our copy, but of the actual work. And The Rime of the Ancient Mariner?
Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
Yes, that was
I know
Coleridge.
that.
And when was it written?
17.
98. Good. 1798. Coral Island is what we just talked about. It's R.M. Ballantyne, and it's 1858.
1858.
Mm-hmm. And Ulrica is Claire de Dora, and that's 1823.
Say Claire de Dura.
Oh, sorry.
Ooh, which one?
Ron.
Claire.
1798.
What was it? The dates for that again?
1823.
Eureka was 1823 by Claire de Dura.
And Christmas Carol is Dickens, and it's 1843.
Wait, did Charles Dickens really have a fascination with magic? Or was
Yeah.
that just for the play?
No, he did. Did you read the guide
He was a good magician too.
from ASF that I told you to read?
No.
No, they didn't give me one.
It was. I gave it to you in your.
It was so
So
long.
ridiculous.
Like, it
Oh,
took for 40
okay.
minutes. For me, well, I was
was.
sorry, but it took me a long time.
Hey, what
We had 2 nights.
Oh, the West.
was the I sort of wondered what the purpose of the beginning of the play was by reading Hamlet to start off. Was that just to make it
It's
like
special.
that was
just set the tone that is comical?
Yeah.
Oh.
I thought he read Oliver Twist.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
No, it
it
wasn't Oliver
Hamlet.
Twist.
That's what I was distracted too. It was Oliver Twist. And he did a lot of readings, and so he got it confused. And then he had to and so then he didn't have it with him, so he had to just sort of tell us the story. And then it was kind of like we were visualizing what he was telling us. That's why he's in and out of it like he was.
Like the narrator.
Yeah. Okay, so memorizing key quotes isn't necessary, but it could provide the specific information you need to make a point, so reviewing them could not hurt, and they're easy to get to with Schmoop and stuff like that. A little harder for Coral Island, but, so if you want to say, well, like on one of our worksheets, you had to talk about wrong punished. Wrongs were punished. And you want to say that Jacob Marley had his wrongs punished. But if you said, Jacob Marley says, I wear the chains I forged in life, and he warns Scrooge that his chain is even longer than his. That's a great way to support your thing. So I'm just saying, reviewing quotes can be helpful for what you have to do on the test. But you don't have to do it. There's not going to be, you will not lose points if you don't know quotes. But I throw it out there as a helpful way to study. Okay. Yeah, well, one day I think I'm gonna change my chart so that early Victorian and late Victorian kind of are like on top of Romanticism and Realism, as opposed to the early Victorian column and the Romanticism column. So, even though I've given you Christmas Carol and Eureka under early Victorian, they are romantic. They do meet the criteria of romantic literature. And you should know why and how.
Wait, so I wrote those under romantic. Do I need to move them to early?
No, I thought I gave it to you under early Victorian, but either way, it's the same column. You can just kind of consider that column together. The only thing different about early Victorian that may or may not be Romanticism, because it also takes place under Realism, is freedom from oppression would apply to the poor. That's particularly Victorian distinctive.
So we can write that under romanticism, though. Freedom from oppression.
Yes,
Okay.
but both the Romantics and the Realists do it. Okay, questions? Yes.
How many characteristics for neoclassical are there supposed to be? Because I only found two. Maybe I need
Well,
to-
you have several handouts.
So they're on. Okay.
Yeah, you have one that starts off with neoclassical literature, and then you also have the one about art movements. And that gives you some nice little phrases that you can, I mean, you don't need to talk about color because there is a color in the book. But it's serious and unemotional. It's very controlled. And then classical antiquity, remember how I told you like portraits, family portraits often reflected mythological or historical stories. Okay, so you should have at least 3 handouts that are kind of summarizing. One says neoclassical literature, and it also covers Romanticism. One says artistic movements, and one says romantic literature that's mostly about Dickens, but the stuff that it says about romantic literature is still really helpful. So those are 3 good summarizing articles. You also have 2 on Rousseau. Don't forget about Rousseau. I don't know for sure if he is Enlightenment or Romanticism. I thought he was Enlightenment, but I have one website saying he is the most well-known of the Romantic philosophers. So, I don't want to tell you that he's got to be Enlightenment or Romanticism, but he is very important. And we talked about why, because if you look at the documents that you have on him, you do have them. The other class, lots of folks, I don't have that one, but they eventually all found them, so look for them.
Which document?
What is it? Rousseau. But both of them say Rousseau on the top. One is written sideways, it's out of a book, and it says Rousseau at the top, and the other one is written long ways, and it says World Literature 2, Rousseau and Romanticism.
Ah.
So like the one that says Rousseau and Romanticism gives you lots of stuff on Romanticism, like one of the main themes is the beauties of nature and the simple life as opposed to the corrupt and artificial life in the cities. What book do you think most does that?
Wait, say that one more time.
Well, you're looking at the bottom.
Which packet?
Rousseau.
Yeah, we have 2 of them, right?
Rousseau and Romanticism, World Literature.
Okay, gotcha.
You take Owen.
Right, yeah, right down here at the bottom. It's talking about one of Rousseau's books, but it says the beauties of nature and the simple life as opposed to the corrupt and artificial life in the cities.
Cool life. The cool life, the cool island.
Okay, he thought human beings were born naturally good and they were corrupted by bad institutions such as government, schools, cities, and armies. So yeah, when you take 3 guys and you strand them on an island by themselves, and they find that they are naturally good, and they take care of each other, and nature, they talk a lot about the beauty of nature, there's a lot of harmony of nature, so you can see how you can go from, oh, these were very romantic thoughts, to what Valentine was doing with his 3 boys on the island. Later on it talks about the Romantics loved wild landscapes and uncivilized peoples, remember colorful ethnic cultures, It says the romantic landscape is one of human emotion blended with rugged mountains, wild grottos, and untamed countryside. We had a wild grotto in our book, The Coral Island. A grotto is a cave. So this is the kind of thing where if you need to, you know, say, okay, Rousseau did this, and Valentine does this in Coral Island, this unity of nature. Could you list the theme for each of these books? Or works, because they're not all books.
Like the theme or a theme?
Well,
Is
some
there
of them are much
specific?
more pointed than others.
Okay.
Like Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner is very specific in his expression of his theme.
I mean, he has the whole thing with nature going on.
Okay. So if you're asked to write about that, you can't say he's got the whole thing with nature going on.
It's sort of
Harmony
like
with
the
nature.
harmony with nature.
Okay, and then you want to, you know, for if you have to give an answer, you want to give something specific, like when.
Oh yeah, he shoots the albatross and he has bad luck. He's out of
Okay.
harmony with nature.
And then he,
So those are things that you just want to review, so that you've got the story real clear in your mind and you know that you can pull up important scenes.
can we, or is that, are we allowed to take some books home?
You can. I think that everything you need is probably going to be in your on your
Our
quizzes.
quizzes, sorry.
Yeah, and review. But if you want to take a book home, you can. I'm also collecting them all, so if you're ready to turn yours in, you can. We're missing some books over there. You can turn in the Christmas Carol too. Can you name the four kingdoms that Gulliver travels to?
Lilliput, Brobding Nag, Houyhnhnm, and the floating one. No, I said that one.
Well, you said Houyhnhnm.
That's what I was, yeah.
The
That's,
floating one is,
or something like that.
What?
one is.
What?
but,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
And then can you know, do you know what's going on each of those? That's really important. And you know, remember we don't have, he's not really writing as a neoclassicist, he's writing as somebody who's making fun of neoclassicism. So what is he making fun of each of those? You know, with each of these they are, you know, there was the Renaissance and then they shifted to the Enlightenment and then they shifted to Romanticism. So you're going to want to know, like, as opposed to what they used to believe, what do they believe now?
sorry, Andy.
I haven't mentioned Eureka very much, but you don't want to just leave that one, draw a blank on that. Oh yeah, Eureka is the one about this and this and this, and this is why it was important or groundbreaking, and this
She
is
was
why it
writing
fits
about a black girl.
Romanticism.
Or as a black girl.
Like I said, you're not going to have any like minor characters that you have to identify unless you want to prove a point, but you do need to know the main characters in each of the books. You need to know Eureka. You need to, I mean, they're pretty Gulliver, Gulliver's Travels, Eureka and Eureka. The boys in the Coral Island. Scrooge and Marley.
What was the guy's, was there, the guy have a name in Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner?
No, the Ancient Mariner is the guy going around. So that's kind of it. Any questions?
I think I have a question.
Okay.
Could we, like, could you do a brief review of what the theme, like, what you yourself would say the theme of each book was?
No, because then I think we're doing kind of grammar stage. I know that y'all can memorize. This is what you say if you're asked about Gulliver's Travels theme.
Okay.
And I've given you a lot of those.
Yeah.
I've given you enough of that kind of facts that if you get and memorize them, you're going to protect your grade, you're going to be fine. But there is a time, too, when you have to, you know, say it on your own.
Okay.
And you can always go to the literature help sites.
That's true.
We did that with rhyme.
Mm-hmm.